that had been away. Haven't changed, had much to say. But man, I still think them cats are crazy. They were asking if you were around, how you was, where you could be found. I told them you were living downtown, driving all the old men crazy. The boys are back in town, boys are back in town. I said, the boys are back in town.
Well. Just so happens to have my very good friend on the other side, and no free ads, of course, 0 free ads, but seemed appropriate for the first one. I don't know if I'll be able to do it for all of them because people have to work the following day, and that includes me. Nick, how the hell are you, man? Hopefully you're doing well.
I am doing fantastic. I enjoyed a nice little break, and then about 3 days later, I was like, yeah, I'm ready to start talking Reds baseball again.
Fair enough. Well, for those that are wondering, we are on X, by the way. I think we're on X. I don't really know. A lot of rust right now. You know, like when you're in mid-season form, you know where all the buttons are, you know how to record, you know how to stream, you know where to go on YouTube. Right now, I'm out of sorts a little bit. I got to be honest. So if I look like I'm scrambling here for the next couple minutes, it's because I am. But there's a lot of things that have happened, Nick. There's a lot of things that have happened since we've been on air last, if you want to call it that. Some cool things, some maybe not so cool, depending on how you view the Craig Counsells of the world. Especially if you like him, then that's not cool. But if you think that he's worthless or you don't think he's of much value, then maybe you just think it's been an okay offseason so far. Your overall thoughts here right before we get going, and we can jump right into it.
Yeah, man, it's not a whole lot yet. It's fascinating. You're starting to kind of see stuff trickling, out, and I think once we get a little closer to the winter meetings, I think that when we'll really start, hearing a lot of chatter. Last offseason was pretty boring. The Reds didn't do a whole lot. And I think this offseason will be a lot different. The Reds are going to have their hands at a lot of different things, and that's going to be exciting, at least to follow and track.
Yeah, Will. And there has been some things that have happened. I think the first thing, as always, is probably the schedule. Many of us, like myself included, Nick, we are not students of the game. We're not students of the offseason. So for many of you that feel like maybe you're not a diehard, you don't know every single date, Nick, run us through those dates, maybe a little bit what they mean, if you will, and we'll kind of get into what's happened as well outside of these dates.
Well, yeah, going on right now is the GM meetings, not to be confused with the winter meetings. Usually not a whole lot of action happens at the GM meetings. It's more of, I guess they like to say the cliche term is laying the groundwork. Now, however, it was reported that a lot of the GMs apparently are leaving early because there's some sickness going around. I know our good pal Elliot said Kevin Newman must have showed up, so
yep,
that was well played on our pal Elliot. But yeah, that's what's going on right now. Things will really start heating up though. The 14th and then the 17th. That's when the Reds will have to make their decisions on who they're going to protect in the Rule 5 draft. We'll talk about that a little later on. November 17th. That's the non-tender deadline. Reds will have to make a decision on guys like Nick Senzel, Derek Law. Then, of course, Reds Fest, and then the winter meetings, December 4th through 6th. That's when we expect to have the most action. That's when the offseason will be the most exciting so far, at least.
Yeah, and I mean, there has been, like you said, not a ton that's happened, but there has been some moves. I know we'll get into Luke Maile a little bit here at some point, but there's also been folks that were not like Luke Maile and they did not re-sign. We have some free agents, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, the Reds so far have lost Vladimir Gutierrez, Justin Dunn, our old pal Henry Ramos. Vladimir Gutierrez may be the one that kind of stings. You would have liked to have saw the Reds, maybe write him out a little more. Remember, he finished third in the Rookie of the Year vote in 2021. Feels like forever ago. And then Justin Dunn, it just never happened. Just so many injuries, but nothing that I think really moves the needle too far one way or the other. Vladimir Gutierrez would have been some nice protection, but it's hard to really know when you're talking guys like Gutierrez and Dunn. Really, how healthy were they? We have no idea what to expect out of them. Reds have lost some guys they were technically minor leaguers. Ben Lively, who was on the major league roster most of the year, actually got optioned, and then he did elect free agency recently. So the Reds lost Lively. They lost our guy Jason Vossler, Ricky Karcher, just some really ones that sting. Would have been nice to keep Lively around, but obviously I'm being facetious, obviously. Lively would have been nice. Lively would have been nice to keep around. But you have to think Lively's going to try to find probably maybe a non-contender. It's cool that the Reds don't fit Ben Lively in his aspirations probably anymore. And then the other interesting note, I would be very surprised if he actually makes the opening day roster in 2024. But the Reds did pick up Bubba Thompson, former first-round pick, really speedy, hasn't really hit well at all. But he is holding a 40-man roster spot. Now, the Reds did pick up a guy on the 40-man roster spot, Nick Solak. He never saw the light of day. So this could be that same type of move, just taking a flyer on him, a guy to keep around. The Reds may cut him in a couple weeks just to, as they kind of see what the needs are. I guess the Reds must have liked something about him, but he's of note as well. And then before we get to Luke Maile, and then one other interesting thing, just some quick NL Central news, the ones that stand out the most. Marcus Stroman and Cody Bellinger, they declined their player options to their free agents. Brewers traded Mark Kahana to the Tigers, and then Wade Miley declined his player option. But the most interesting news, or I guess the most exciting, news so far, Luke Maile, of course, Reds signed him to a 1-year, $3.5 million deal with a club option. Of course, Luke was on with Tom Brenneman on Off the Bench. Really cool interview. We put that up in the podcast feed as well if you want to go back and check that out. But yeah, Trace, this was, I guess, the most interesting move so far. What was your kind of thoughts on this?
I actually thought that Luke earned it, right? I mean, it wasn't one of those situations where it felt gross in any way. There's certainly some other players on this team that you could have felt that way about, perhaps. I'm sure that if the Reds came out, and not that they would, but if they came out and said that they were going to extend Casalli's of the world, you'd be like, what are we doing here? Maile doesn't fall into that category, and you know what? I think he's been toxic Trace. I really don't want to do this. I think he was our best catcher, and I know that's debatable. But I hope Tyler Stevenson, if Tyler Stevenson obviously was with the Reds, and I fully expect him to be with the Reds going into next year and beyond, I would like to hope that he would be able to outplay Maile. But I also think that Maile's a formidable, pretty serviceable backup if he's able to play to the level that he played at last year. And you know what's crazy, Nick, is there's a small chance. I'm not saying it's a great chance. I'm not going to hang my hat on it or hold my breath. There's a chance for the first time in his career he has some stability, and it might allow him to kind of, I don't want to say relax a little bit, and I'm talking about Maile, of course, to where he might get better. I mean, I know he's kind of he's an older player. It's not like it's not like there's a guy that, but mentally, maybe, I know I'm stretching here, maybe it breaks a barrier down a little bit, and he becomes a player that many never thought he could be. I don't know. That's the positive take, at least.
Toxic Trace, first time off season, 9:39 p.m. Keeping track.
I'm just saying, Tyler Stevenson, not the best season, but I still like Tyler. Just need a little more out of him. That's all. And you know what? Tyler, to be fair, the last month was pretty damn good.
Yeah. If we felt better about Tyler Stevenson, if we felt how we felt about Tyler Stevenson going into 2023, I think we would absolutely love the Luke Maile signing. It would be like a home run, right? Luke Maile's the perfect backup catcher. The pitchers, they all love working with him. it wasn't this like fluffy thing. You could tell it was genuine. The pitchers loved working with him. Luke Maile is a absolute phenomenal backup catcher. I think he's a fringe starting big league catcher. Yeah, like you said. So I like how you said he earned it. I mean, if there was one guy that earned a contract on the Reds, it was Luke Maile. He really stepped up with Tyler Stevenson not performing up to what we hope. But it really all comes down to Tyler Stevenson. As much as this news was about Luke Maile, it comes down to Tyler Stevenson. I'm really hopeful that first full healthy offseason, I'm hoping that he can, work with some really good catchers this offseason and he can come back and have a huge year. If Tyler Stevenson can hit better, it'll mask a lot of his other deficiencies.
Or
That's
get better
also
defensively
part of it as
too.
well. Yeah, you don't need both. You just need really one or the other. Just improve. Take a nice leap in one of those two, and you have a pretty good catcher at that point.
I agree with Tyler. I agree. My only fear is that if it doesn't get significantly better at the plate, it needs to get significantly better, and significant is a very arbitrary term, yes, but it needs to get better behind the plate. And we'll see. We'll leave it at that. We will see. One thing I do hope about Tyler Stevenson, right before we move on here, is I really hope that he gets back to just doing what he does best. And I know the Reds or whoever maybe was in his ear about the idea of obtaining some more power, certainly more pull power. I just don't know if that's in the cards, and I think that kind of mentally got to him a little bit. He got outside himself. It led to a little bit of a snowball effect, and then at the end of the year, I think he got a little more back to old Tyler Stevenson, the one that we all loved right when he came up, and that's okay. I hope we all don't just sit here and judge Tyler based off the fact that he doesn't have a ton of power.
Well, let's also look at this. So I'm looking right now at like the Fangraphs roster resources, their projected lineup for the Reds next year. They have Tyler Stevenson batting ninth. If you remember going into last year, we probably thought Tyler Stevenson would bat in third, fifth, somewhere like towards the top of the lineup. As far as offensively, I think the emergence of McLean, Steers, CES, Ellie De La Cruz, Will Benson, etc., might have taken some pressure off of Tyler Stevenson, at least from the offensive side. So it'll be interesting to see. He's definitely a bounce back candidate. Will he? Time will tell.
Yeah, like I said, get back to hitting the ball hard up the middle, backside, and he's going to accidentally run into some pull home runs, yes, but I just want him to feel comfortable at the plate again, and I felt like for the first half of the season, that just wasn't the case. He didn't look like he was having fun playing baseball, and who knows? That could be for a myriad of reasons. I don't even know what the word is, but I tried to use it. Anyway, Nick, other news.
The last big shocking one, the Cubs pulled a shocker, hiring Craig Counsell as the manager and basically essentially firing David Ross at the same time. Craig Counsell becomes the highest paid manager in Major League Baseball history at 5 years, $40 million. My instant reaction was, please, Brewers, hire David Ross, because that would just be electric. I want to see it. Do the right thing, Milwaukee. I don't think they will, but we need it.
It'd be funny. If anything, it'd be funny. I don't know. I mean, listen, this is a relatively fair debate within baseball circles of how much a manager means. Certainly from a clubhouse perspective and an overall, vibe perspective, I think it matters. I think David Bell does a pretty good job in that regard. And certainly you can't have like anybody manage a baseball team. But paying someone that much money, I think probably means more on the side of what did they tell him? Maybe it was just money. That's why he came. But Counsell certainly felt like he left the Brewers because he's seen that window close. And there was another window opening, which is the Chicago Cubs. And one would think with a payroll and an organization and a revenue stream like they have, you wouldn't really have windows. You'd be consistent because you have so much money that you can probably mask a lot of problems. But they are the Cubs. But here's the thing. I don't want to say I'm worried about it because I'm not worried, but it certainly feels like they're going to spend some money if they're going to sign a manager for that much money. Am I being an idiot for thinking that?
No, I mean they've given every indication that they're going to spend money. I'll kind of take a different take. I think this is a big nothing burger. Like, I think Craig Counsell is a fantastic manager. I think he's one of the best in the game. I don't think managers matter that much at the same time. And the Cubs have money to waste. So, like, do I think that the Cubs did this great thing? I'm just saying, like, they can afford to waste money on a manager, whereas the Reds and the Pirates maybe cannot. Like, that extra $8 million matters a lot more. So I don't think there's. I've seen the takes that oh my gosh, they overpaid for Craig Counsell. Whatever. Like, it's not going to kill the Cubs. It's not going to do a big thing. And I've seen the other side. Oh, the Cubs got Craig Counsell. This is huge. I don't really think it. They still have to build a good team. David Bell lost 100 games in 2022, and then David Bell turned around and won 82 games in 2023. I think David Bell did a fantastic job, but it was a lot more about Matt McClain, Ellie De La Cruz, Spencer Steer, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, obviously. Yeah, I mean, that's the point, right? It's like nothing changed at the beginning of the year other than the players that came in. David Bell was there the whole time, not taking anything away from David Bell. Some people hate David Bell. Some people love David Bell. Most people probably are in the middle. That's where I fall. It's just I think that what's funny is what you said is true. You said the Cubs can waste money. I just chuckled a little bit because I think from now on, the Cubs, whenever they spend money, we just say they waste money, and then the Reds spend money. So the Reds this offseason are going to spend money. The Cubs are going to waste money. So that's what I took from that conversation.
No, not every move the Cubs are going to make is a waste of money.
No, I mean, I think that. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to keep saying that.
Oh, okay. I think the Cubs, in series, I think the Cubs can afford to make some more riskier moves than the Reds. And in some ways, if you're a Reds fan, you want them to make those risky moves. You want them to side the Jason Hayward because that levels the playing field. They signed one really awful contract. All of a sudden, their $200 million payroll isn't really that much better than a payroll of $150 million. So, yes, they have more wiggle room, but if they do go out and sign a whole couple really bad contracts, all of a sudden the playing field's much more even.
I'll say something absurd just to get the show going. Right before we get to Votto here is I that's how I kind of feel about Ohtani. And listen, there's some franchises that can afford him, but you can't completely miss on him either. Like, he's going to have to be a pretty damn good player, and he has been. Maybe arguably the greatest baseball player of all time, and I wouldn't even make it arguable. I'd say that he probably has been. It's just that when you invest that much money, guaranteed, I mean, with all due respect, not that he's going to be riding the CTA up there in Chicago if Ohtani gets signed to Chicago in the north side, but he gets hit by a bus and or falls off the L. I'm not wishing that upon anybody, by the way. It just seems like a crazy amount of money for one single player. Just saying.
Yeah, no, I agree. It could absolutely backfire. It kind of also like is with Cody Bellinger. The Cubs keeping Cody Bellinger may have knocked the Reds out of the playoffs. I don't know. Maybe the Reds win one of those games and it changes everything. But it definitely, them holding on to Cody Bellinger and not cashing in on that great chip that they had is definitely going to help the Reds long term. There's no question about that.
Yeah. No. And Marcus Stroman for that matter. So
yeah.
All right. Well, go ahead, Nick. Get us started.
All right. Well, unless you were living under a rock over the weekend, Reds did decline the Joey Votto option. Quote from Nick Kroll: with where we are, looking at our roster, playing time, how that affects us moving forward, I think it made the most sense for us to decline the option. Latest news, maybe some buzz with Toronto with Votto, but it sounds, barring something really unforeseen, it's a finality thing at this point. Joey Votto and the Reds are moving on.
Yeah. This is a subject in which is very controversial in regards to the way that you handle it. I know when you sit behind a microphone and you talk, you try to make sure you you speak in a way in which you don't regret later because people can twist your words and make you out to be somebody that you're not. Like I've said a billion times on this show, and I've said through X.com before, I genuinely was that guy who has been that guy at Thanksgiving and the holidays, and when you're sitting around with your family, have argued tooth and nail to people that are obviously older than me, my uncles and a lot of my family, my stepdad, that Joey Votto is the greatest hitter, and whether you want to use offensive player or hitter of all time in Reds history, I believe that. He got on base better than anybody without making an out, and that's the ultimate goal when you go to the plate. And I get the argument on the other side about how there's all these other intangibles and or metrics that you'd like to use to showcase that someone else is better. That's fine. You can have your opinion. I got mine too. I think that Joey Votto is the greatest that there has been that's come to the plate for the Cincinnati Reds. I also understand where the Reds are at, and I also watched Joey Votto play this past season, and I can completely understand as to why Nick Krall said the things he said. And the last kind of point I'll make before I hand it over to you, because I could rant on this subject probably for 30 minutes based off everything I've seen, and the internet's not a good place to go to try to find rationality. I get it, but it's like I believe what Nick Krall said. And if that makes me somebody that just loves Nick Krall and listens to everything he says and believes everything he says, you'll realize here in a little bit later in the show, I think he's full of shit sometimes too. But for this instance, I do believe what he was saying. I think he's telling the truth. The fact of the matter is that Joey Votto, in the position he's in, based off the depth that they have at certain positions, and the belief they have in Christian Encarnacion Strand, they don't see how Joey Votto is going to be able to get enough at-bats to be effective for this baseball team. It's as simple as that for me. Now, if you want to think that I'm crazy for saying that, or you want to think that the Reds are somehow dishonoring him or just trying to push him out, or they don't believe that, they think he's old school. I don't think any of those things. I think the Reds actually love Joey Votto. They just watch the games and they realize that, unfortunately, Father Time caught up with him. I don't know how else to say it, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was the right move. So many people have said so many things. I don't want to rehash things that have been said a million times. And the one thing I do push back on a lot is I saw a lot of this notion that the Reds did Joey like a disservices last year and not making some public thing and honoring him. I can't get behind that. I don't understand. Like, when the Reds came home for the last series, they were a half game out of a playoff spot. Like, what are they supposed to do? Hey, Joey, we're going to go ahead and decline your option. I know you're in the middle of some big games. You're starting at first base for us. We're going to honor you this weekend. Like, I just don't understand. It's just because the Reds were good this year or competitive or whatever. I know people like to push back on were they actually good or not, but it just, if the Reds had stunk this year, it would have been easy to do something like that, but they couldn't because the Reds were in the race till the end. So that's the thing that I find weird. I want to offer a different point that I haven't heard from anywhere else on this. And it's this. One of the challenges with bringing Joey Votto back next year is specific to the Reds as opposed to anyone else. If it gets to be June 1st and Joey Votto looks like Will Myers did last year, it's a lot harder for the Reds to DFA Joey Votto than any other team, right? Like, if Joey goes and signs with the Toronto Blue Jays and it's not there at all, if the Blue Jays DFA him, no big deal. Hey, we tried, didn't work out. If the Reds DFA him in the middle of the year, that's going to be really tough. Or if the Reds get to a place where, like, they have to almost really not play him at all, I feel like the pressure it would put on David Bell is really immense. Like, just with the playing time and having to manage a living legend, and a situation that comes to mind. And I know he's a little bit older, but he was still producing a little bit later in his career, as Nelson Cruz last year. Padres took a flyer on Nelson Cruz. I thought it was a good flyer. He had a chance to hit well. It didn't work out. They DFA'd him in the middle of the year. So what? Like, the Padres fans, they have nothing invested in Nelson Cruz. it would just be really tough to DFA Joey Votto in the middle of the season if it comes to that.
Here's the thing with Joey. It's one of those weird situations where obviously if he gets signed by an NL Central team, you can't really root for him per se, but if he gets signed for an American League team, I hope he plays well. It's not like I want this guy to just to not play well, to prove a point, to say, well, look, see, he's not good anymore. Joey, in my opinion, still has some spurt ability. I just think that there's not going to be enough of a consistency there over the course of 162 that lends itself to two things. One, when you have an up, and people are going to go crazy for Trey saying some crazy shit here, but when you have an up-and-coming organization who has a lot of guys that you want to try to keep as many of them as you can. It sounds stupid, but 40-man roster spots matter a little bit. And I know people are going to hate me for saying that Joey Votto, we're talking a 40-man. People are arguing about the roster spots that are on the big league club. It's just, all in all, it's simply put, I understand where the Reds were at, why they made the decision they made, and I actually believe they made the right one. Doesn't mean that you have to love the decision. You should just, I would hope, respect where they're at and what you see. And if the Reds win 80 games for some reason next year, I'll still continue to sit here and say that I think that it was the right decision. I mean, that's just how it goes. So, again, people that are begging or hoping or wishing upon the idea that they're going to go out and maybe re-sign him after free agency hits, the only reason they would do that is if they're able to bring him back on such a small deal, and every single other team in the league pretty much passed on him, and it's his only option. And at that point, as crazy as that sounds, I still think that's way, way far-fetched because the Reds are telling the truth. I just don't think they don't want to take up a roster spot for a 40-year-old first baseman who can hit left-handed pitching and respectfully hasn't looked very good outside of the first few games he's come back after a couple injuries in the short-term stint that he played last year. That's kind of my final piece there on Mr. 19. I still love him. Best Reds hitter of all time.
Yeah, I mean the Reds have picked up guys on minor league contracts like Tyler Naquin, like Nick Martini that have come up and performed well. But the difference with those kind of guys is if it doesn't work out, you could send him back to AAA. You can't do that with Joey Votto. You can't be shipping guys back and forth. One other point on this is last year there was only 2 players in Major League Baseball that got an at bat that were 40 years or older: Miguel Cabrera and Nelson Cruz, and neither one of those players performed well. Joey Votto could come out and have a resurgence, but it's just so risky that I think the Reds aren't in a position where to them it makes sense to make that kind of risk. I think there are some other teams where it does make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, people trying to sell tickets. Name starts with a B, and the second part of it starts with a J. It's a good idea. They should look into it. Next topic of conversation, Nick, is one that we've done before. Evan Maurer is going to spam the chat. I think that we might have to put Evan in a timeout here. I'm going to keep a close eye. I put on here it's mandatory, and it seems that way. I think there's a little fresh perspective, though, on Jonathan, for me at least. I don't know how you feel about it. There were some quotes, though, before we get into all of this. I'll let you run through the quotes to kind of get us going.
Yeah, I was really hoping Jonathan India rumors would at least wait till week 2 of us doing the show so we could kind of talk about all the other things. But then, of course, when this pops up, it kind of you have to force it in. But John Morosi ruined our show. He had to tweet out, India is a popular name among execs at the MLB GM meetings. Multiple teams have inquired about his availability. Reds will listen to offers due to their position player depth, but they value India highly and aren't motivated to move him. That has got to be a direct Nick Krall quote if I've ever heard one. The Reds value him and are not motivated to move.
Yeah, remember that last topic when I said that I thought that Nick Krall was telling the truth? I think he's full of shit on this one. I think he's lying straight through his teeth. He's trying to use as much leverage as he possibly can. He's lying out of his ass, and that's a fact. The only thing that I'm not going to disagree with that statement about is that he values Jonathan India. He loses me at highly. The only thing about this, and I'll let you speak on this at great length maybe because I don't have a ton to say about it really, is I think that Jonathan India's trade value is going to be significantly less than what the vast majority of this fan base thinks. I'll leave it at that. And if they trade him and it was for like a couple guys that were at AA level and or maybe a guy at a single A level that is relatively decently high valued in a prospect perspective, I think that's about where he would fall on the totem pole.
Yeah, I agree that I do think it is a lot less than the fan base thinks. There's a lot of variance to it. It only takes one team to overpay. I do think Jonathan India, if you're a team looking for him, you would think that it's a team that's in a win now mode. I know I've said this before, but you almost think that teams are going to want to give lower level prospects back for a guy like Jonathan India. I have no problem cashing in at that. I have no problem if you're continuing to win the World Series and you have a player like a Jonathan India in this situation cashing in for. I think you need to have your foot in the year ahead. You need to have your foot in 5 years down the line. That's how a good franchise runs. So you can keep being, good and competitive year after year after year. I don't think the Reds have to trade Jonathan India. I don't have this like burning desire inside of me that, man, if they don't trade Jonathan India this offseason, wow, that's a terrible thing. No, if there's not the market there, if you're getting pennies on the dollar back, keep the guy. You never know what will happen next year. But if you have someone that you can cash in, make your team better, or make your team better even down the line, I think you go for it. The only way this ends up upsetting me is if I see Jonathan India playing second base 120 times next year for the Reds. They keep him, they DH him most of the time, they play him sparingly at second base, they move him to left field. I have no problem with that. The only way I'd be upset is if I see Jonathan India second baseman written like 100 plus times. That would really kill me.
I'm with you. I think that Jonathan India, for as much as we don't want to talk intangibles on this show a whole lot, I think he has some good intangibles. Like the leadership thing that everybody obviously points to first when they're trying to defend Jonathan India, there's some merit to that. There's some value there. How much? It's arguable. But I would venture to say that if you're not going to get the offer that you want, I'm with you. Who cares if he comes back? Not a problem. And I would even argue that it's okay to have some depth. I mean, especially when you have some young guys who, let's face it, aren't 100%, well, not even close to 100, but they're not proven at the big league level yet. I'd like to think that Matt McLain's going to be a stud because I do believe that. But he's also the same kid that struggled, in Chattanooga for most of the year, and struggle is a very quotation word here. I'm not trying to say that he was horrific. But you just don't know what you have. But the thing that I always fall back on is the fact that Matt McLain and Ellie De La Cruz, and even Spencer Steer for that matter, but obviously Noel V. Marte, defensively, I don't see those guys slumping a whole lot. And the value that those guys bring defensively, I think, will outweigh those guys even slumping a little bit. And to your point, if Jonathan India finds himself at a DH and or maybe, and I hate left field too. I got to be honest. I'm sick and tired of just feeling like we can stick guys in the outfield and it's going to work. And I'm not saying you're saying that. I just am. I'm sick and tired of watching guys like Nick Senzel try to go track balls down the outfield and they don't know their ass between their elbow. I'm tired of it. I want to see guys go make plays in the outfield, and they look like they belong there. And trust me, I can already envision it. You stick him out in left field, and I hope he proves me wrong. And by God, I hope people make fun of me. That's my favorite thing that with what we do here is people think they got me if one of these guys starts playing well. I just don't even. I can already see it. Jonathan India playing left field will give me migraines, and I think that I'll probably have to take a little too much ibuprofen next year if that's the case.
All right. Let's take a step back here.
What?
If we have Noel V. Marte at third base, we have Ellie De La Cruz at shortstop, we have Matt McLean at first base, we have CES at first base, we have Jake Fraley in right field, TJ Friedel in center field. If Jonathan India is the only guy in left field, I think that defense overall is okay. It's certainly better than him at second base. It can't be worse. The one thing that we'll get into the free agents here in a minute. I obviously want a right-handed bat as a free agent. I keep coming back to, I look at the list that I'll put up here in a minute.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jonathan India could be better than half of these guys. Like, he has that potential. Like Teoscar Hernandez, a guy that I would be all about. He had a 105 WRC plus last year. Like, could Jonathan India do that if he's healthy? Absolutely. So that's the one, like, hard piece of this is I'm like, man, Jonathan India, he could outperform some of these guys at a significantly discounted price, which is important because it gives you more money to spend towards pitching.
Yeah, you got Spencer Steer too.
This is off topic. I want the Reds to pretend they don't have Spencer Steer. Just pretend you don't even have the guy. You build your roster, you pretend you don't have him, you get to spring training, and you see where he needs to go. Because there's always going to be a spot at the end of spring training, and Spencer Steer can play multiple positions. I think that's how a good organization runs. They have a guy like Spencer Steer that they know has that versatility. You pretend you don't have him, and then you'll find a spot for him by the end of spring. You don't know what it'll be, but there's always going to be that spot that opens up.
Okay. No, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you.
And Spencer Steer's a starter. Don't get me twisted here. Spencer Steer's a starting caliber player for sure. I'm just saying there'll be a spot open up. We don't know where it'll be, but it'll be there.
Some quick super chats here really fast. Big C Viking Helmet guy said he's not in midseason form either, so don't feel bad. All right, Big C. Clay Snowden, good friend Clay, said support these guys with the super chat, and then he got a train going, let me tell you. Mark Fetters with some support. Bryce Spalding said he can't wait to give me a farewell tour once I retire. That made me chuckle in the middle of Nick saying, I got one thing to say that's important that I haven't heard yet. And I look over, I see that, and I start laughing, and right in the middle of you being serious, so I'm sorry about that. And then Evan brings up a good point. He says, if the Reds sign just one lefty masher, is Jonathan India's role on this team in serious doubt? Evan.
You want to hear something really wild?
I'm ready for it.
Jonathan India still has options.
No, Nick, come on. Let's not go down that path yet. He's okay. I'm not. Jonathan India, yes, has pissed me off because he can't play second base all that well sometimes. And by sometimes, I mean more times than not, but I'm just trying to be nice because everyone always says that I'm Mr. Bad Guy. Okay? But I'm also going to sit here and say that Jonathan India is not a bad player either, okay? He's serviceable. All I'm suggesting is I'm just tired of this organization always just thinking we can hide guys in the outfield when they're infielders. That's all I'm saying. Kind of tired of it. Spencer Steer is kind of getting through it a little bit, yes. But for those that are asking and always make fun of Stuart Fairchild, let me tell you something. Stuart Fairchild looks like he knows how to track a baseball down outside of one time in the Windy City, okay? I get it. He dropped a fly ball in Chicago. Everyone wants to remind me of it. But other than that, there's not many that many great defensive outfielders outside of, obviously, TJ Friedel. So there's that.
I think Jake Fraley's a pretty good. He does rate pretty well. But I know he was hurt so much of – and that's another real concern with Jake Fraley is his availability over the last couple of years. as we kind of look towards it. But yeah,
Will Benson can be okay, but he looks like he's. You know what? I'll say this about Will really fast. I think Will could actually be a really good outfielder. He just is so raw right now that I'm hoping with reps he gets a lot better, but sometimes his routes to baseballs are atrocious. But that's everybody. I mean, hell, I love Will Benson.
Yeah. But Steer was by all metrics, was a worse defensive player than Jonathan India. If we are being fair at third base and at first base.
Yeah.
But Spencer Steer also hit significantly better and made up for a lot of that.
Yeah. And
you can throw him different spots.
Oh, that's fair. What's next? You want to get into the non-tender?
Yeah, a couple different angles here. So we'll start with the pitchers. So these are the guys the Reds will have to make a decision on by November 17th on basically if they're going to keep them. Now, if you do tender a player a contract, you don't actually have to give them all of that money. There's a 15 days into spring training and there's a 45 days in. That's like some sort of, you have to pay so much of it. I don't know the exact figures on that, but you do have to make a decision if you're committing some money towards them. Obviously, Lucas Sims is a lock. I think TJ Antone, there is a lock. I guess I'll read this for the podcast sake, but Lucas Sims projected $2.8 million, Derek Law $1.4 million, TJ Antone $900,000, Alex Young $1.7 million. And then the rest of the relievers are haven't reached arbitration yet, so they're on the league minimum. But I think Sims is a no-brainer. I think TJ Antone still being under $1 million is a no-brainer. Law and Young, that's where you got to really, I would kind of say, I don't know about that. But when you saw that first contract that the Braves signed in free agency, Jimenez, you're kind of like, man, I don't know. The reliever market, that might, that might actually be a steal. I don't know. That's where you got to really gauge the market, I think.
Listen, I'm not gonna hang much of a hat on Alex Young. If you want to convince me that Derek Law could be somewhat serviceable with the arbitration number, I would venture to agree, maybe. But man, I tell you, and it's just money too. I mean, to a certain extent, it's just money. It's not a lot of money. So, if you told me that you were going to get the same year out of Derek Law, and maybe even for all intents and purposes, Alex Young was pretty good for a while. He kind of fell back down to earth a little bit there towards the end, and obviously the availability would be something of a concern as well. So we'll see. I don't think that's not really that. I won't say not big decisions, but to be honest, for a team that had 68 players play for him last year, those two guys aren't going to probably be the difference makers.
Yeah, that's just what needs to be decided by November 17th. So that's kind of one of the more pressing sides of things we're looking at. And then the position players, Nick Senzel is projected to make $3 million, Jake Fraley $2.2 million, Tyler Stevenson $2.9 million, Jonathan India $3.7 million. And if you're unfamiliar with the arbitration system, I won't bore you too much. But the reason Nick Senzel's higher than Fraley and Stevenson is because he has significantly more service time. That's why he's up there. So obviously Fraley, Stevenson, and India are no-brainers. Whether the Reds even entertain trading of those guys or not, they're going to tender those guys' contracts. It's really Nick Senzel at $3 million. I go back and forth on Senzel, Trace, and he destroyed left-handed pitching. It's just, holding a roster spot. That part of it's more tough than the $3 million. I also can't quit Jose Barrero, and he is out of options. I don't know. I lean no, but I'm not. I haven't even sold myself on that, if that makes sense.
What do you need me to say to sell you?
I don't know. Sell me.
Well, I think at some point the attitude and decisions that were already made in the past kind of rear their head a little bit with him, and whether or not they're justified or whether or not they like it or again, I'm not suggesting that Nick Senzel is even a bad person or a bad teammate or any of those things. He could be the greatest person and the greatest teammate out. It's just clear and evident, though, at some point there was frustration built between the two sides that they didn't see eye to eye on something at all. And again, Nick Senzel hit the biggest spite home run of the season without question. He probably, I think, threw two birds up there as he rounded the bases when he finally got a chance to come back after he got optioned down to Louisville. So, I guess my point in all this is saying I'm trying to read between the lines or the tea leaves or whatever the term is that you're supposed to say here with Nick Senzel in this organization. But I would be, I would be shocked is maybe a little too much, but I would be surprised, I guess, if Nick Senzel it returns. And I think some of that is to what you said. I think the Reds believe that they're going to fill some holes through free agency. They got some money to spend, yes, but they also believe in some other guys. We haven't really got into some other up-and-coming guys that could also perhaps fill some roster spots and some holes that we don't know. I mean, a year ago, would we have ever believed that we would have guys like, like I said, would we have believed, and I guess we would because we forecasted a little bit, but no one thought Matt McLain would come up and play as well as he has, or Steer, CES even maybe. These guys were ahead of schedule. Maybe there's one other person that they believe they're just forecasting out of X, Y, and Z. One of those guys is going to be ahead of schedule. We want to make sure if they are ahead of schedule, Nick, we don't have somebody kind of sitting here that we're going to have to do something with. And on top of that, we got to spend money to keep them. Let's just let them go.
Senzel also does have an option left. That's expensive. It's expensive.
Yeah,
it's expensive.
I mean, $3 million to sit in Louisville.
Sure, but if you need him,
if we need Nick Senzel, mark it down. It didn't go as planned, and I'm not going to suggest the season's a failure if we're relying on Nick Senzel. Because it always just traces the bad guy being negative. I'm just trying to keep it real and being honest. You think Nick Senzel is going to be the savior of this franchise when he can only hit left-handers and he can play what positions exactly?
Yeah, he can't play any well, but I think he was top 10 in baseball in OPS against left-handed pitching. So
I know that he's great against left-handed pitching. But there's other things that happen in baseball. For $3 million? I don't know.
It's just money. Isn't that what they say?
You got me on that one. You're right.
It's just money. Just money. To your point, though, the one guy that's really changed so much of the conversation is Noelvi Marte. Because I did not expect on November 8th to feel this confident, hey, Noelvi Marte is going to be on the opening day roster. That's, I think, the most shocking thing that happened last season was that how quickly he became an instant fixture into this team. Now, look, he could absolutely regress next year. That's certainly a possibility. I'm not going to act like it isn't. But the fact that I think most of us feel really good about him as being your everyday third baseman is really just an incredible development that happened, and maybe one of the bigger things for the Reds. Well, one of the bigger surprises, one of the bigger wins individually for the Reds last year. Because I think we knew Ellie De La Cruz was going to be a part of this team. I think we knew Matt McLain was going to be a part of this team. I think we knew Christian Encarnacion-Strand was going to be a part of this team in this near future. Noelvi Marte, it felt like he was still a little bit down the road. Remember, this guy was just got to Chattanooga at the beginning of this year, was playing in Dayton towards the end of 2022. So for him to have made that leap, that really changed so much.
I agree 100%. And if memory serves me right, he didn't get off to the greatest of starts in Chattanooga to start the year off either. And then I think he got hurt.
Baseball.
Got hurt a little. I mean, he didn't get hurt for long, but he spent some time off. And this is a while back, and I don't remember all these things all that well anymore. But point is, I think he was this is a crazy statement to make. For me and my individual belief system, he was the biggest surprise in a positive way. Some of that's because of the expectations I had for Ellie and obviously Matt McLain when they came up.
Yeah. Last piece of this, these are the players, and probably by the time we meet again, we probably should discuss when we're doing the show next week, Trace. But these are the guys that are Rule 5 eligible. This will be next Tuesday is that deadline. I won't read them all, but the top is Reese Hines, Jacob Hurtubise, Christian Roa, Jose Acuna, Bryce Bonin. Last year, the Reds protected 4 guys: Ellie De La Cruz, Noelvi Marte, Leon Richardson. It was kind of a surprise, but obviously that turned out to be a really good decision by the Reds, and Ricky Karcher. So I would probably say 4 is probably around that number. The first 4 I have: Hines, Hurtubise. I think Hines, Hurtubise, and Roa are probably the close to locks. Hines in particular. Jose Acuna, I'd have a hard time believing the Reds are going to let him go, but maybe it depends on how many players they're planning on adding. And then Bryce Bonin may be kind of one of the wild cards there, but that's just kind of something to track. I don't, Trace, unless you have something really in depth, I don't even have a huge conversation, but just that's the first, I guess, barring the Reds signing a free agent out of nowhere in the next week. That's kind of the next thing up that we're kind of tracking, and that'll be of note. And Leon Richardson, of course, the decision to keep him turned out to be a really big decision for the Reds organization.
Yeah, no, not a lot of non-tender talk from your boy here. We do have
Hurtubise. I like Hurtubise.
Hurtubise. You never know. Maybe that's the guy that comes through and surprises everybody. We'll see.
Or Blake Dunn. I mean, the Reds are going to have 2 really interesting outfielders that you think are going to start the year at AAA, but there could be a couple injuries in spring training, and those guys are pretty good depth to have right now. That are, and that's going to be exciting. That you're not going to be. I think the Reds are going to have some good players at AAA, and that's going to be, and not the prospects, not the okay, well he's on this trajectory here. They're going to have some nice players that are kind of stuck there because they can't get to the big leagues, not because they're developing.
It's fair. We'll see what happens. Number 15 is probably gone, though.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Free agent targets. You got some options?
I got plenty of options. I mean, I ran out of room. I could have kept going here, but if you're watching, Nola Snell, Jordan Montgomery, Sonny Gray, Eduardo Rodriguez, there's several pitchers from Japan. I think there's 4 that are interesting. Kershaw, Giolito, Stroman, Lugo, Medea, Michael Waka, Kyle Gibson, Luis Severino, kind of the ones at the top. I mean, obviously, I'd love for the Reds to go out and get someone like Eduardo Rodriguez. I personally love to see them get like someone like Eduardo Rodriguez, and then maybe someone like Luis Severino, kind of on more of like a buy low type, maybe a combination of both. But it's really one of these situations, Trace, in my opinion, where the Reds are just going to have to kind of see where this market is, because it hasn't really been set at all yet.
Yeah, there's one other Japanese pitcher you didn't put on there, but that's here nor there. I don't know what the Reds are going to do, but I do think they're going to spend some money on a starter. Without question, they're going to go out and get somebody. Who that is, I have no idea. And you know what? I'm not going to sit here and act like there's one of these guys that makes me think that I would get more excited than the next. I really. I don't know. It's hard to say. The better they are, the more they cost. The more they cost, the more risk. Are the Reds and here we go again. People are going to crush me for saying this, but are the Reds in a position right now where I would believe wholeheartedly that no doubt they are going to be in the thick of winning a World Series? I'm not there yet. I definitely think they're on the right track to that, and I know that that's where people get pissed off at you specifically, and definitely they're going to start hating me too a little bit right now, is because it's always like, well, there's this next year thing. Just trying to keep my expectations relatively realistic. And again, I would like for them to go out and add a veteran arm that, more importantly, if anything, can add some stability and also add the opportunity to teach and mentor some of the younger guys. That's That's about that.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on years, dollars. I personally, I love the idea of overpaying for a shorter deal. I fully support that. I think that's the smarter way to go if you're a team like the Reds. That's why, like if you're talking Sonny Gray versus Blake Snell, if you can get Sonny Gray on like a 3-year deal or maybe even 2 versus like having to go 7 years or something like that, those are the ones that make me really nervous. I don't care how much the Reds pay a guy over 2 years. Pay him all the money. I don't care. That's not going to sink you long term. It's the deals that can really, by year 2 or 3, they're toast. Man, that kills you. Those are the deals I am the most nervous about. But yeah, overpay like hell over short term deals. I'm all for that. I don't even care if they're older players and they're super risky. It's a short deal. It's not gonna. It's just just money for the short term.
Yeah, no, you're right. And if the Reds are going to continue to be exciting and have a successful brand of baseball, you'd like to think that it's going to open up their resources. The old famous quote: "They're going to align their payroll to their resources." You'd like to think that their resources will become a little more plentiful. Therefore, they'll be able to go out and make some decisions that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to make. And we'll find out what they ultimately do. And if anything, the one thing I take away from the decisions that have been made, not only this past offseason with the Votto situation, but maybe even more importantly, what they did back at the deadline, I just have faith that this organization is seeing eye to eye on the plan. And I think the plan is a smart plan. I don't want to sit here and suggest that the plan's 100% going to work, because nothing's 100%. I was driving home today and I was thinking to myself, ultimately, I know people disagree with this, but ultimately you're really not going to be 100% satisfied unless you win the World Series. You're just not. I mean, you can say whatever you want. Diamondbacks fans are going to be thinking to themselves right now, they had a hell of a season, yes. But they're also going to be wondering how in the world they let game 1 slip away, and they could have been up 2-0 coming home with the chance to win 2 games to close out the series. That's 100% what some of those fans are thinking. And on top of that, have you ever heard anybody mention how many NLCS or ALCSs they've been to after about 5 years of time? No one does that. I mean, it's, and I know that sounds like really, really, I'm not suggesting that you can't be happy as a fan or get excited as a fan because your team's good and they don't win the World Series. But I was thinking on the way home, like, if it was a perfectly parity league, you win the World Series once every 30 years? So 2 World Series in most people's lifetimes, that's what you get. Now, I know that's really, I'm not trying to be a pessimist here, but my point is this. I am of the mindset right now with this young core group that let's be very conservative on the front end of this thing so we can be absurdly ridiculous on the back end of it. And what I mean by that is if we have to go out and spend $25 million on a 1-year rental starting pitcher because that's what it might take to get us over the proverbial hump, so be it. But like you're saying, let's not go out and sign a guy to a 5-year deal, and on year 3, when we actually have a chance to win the World Series, we're stuck with this shitty contract because we signed a guy thinking he was going to be somebody he's not. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't ever sign a guy on a 5-year deal, but you better be pretty damn sure that it's going to work out. You better have some real confidence. And I look at that list, I got to be honest, there's not one guy that I go, man, that guy is for sure going to be a bona fide great starting pitcher in 4 or 5 years. I could see every single one of those guys, falling off a cliff in 3 or 4 years, because that happens. It happens to most 30-year-old pitchers. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
I also like to put in the record that Mr. Juan, a loyal watcher of the show, Mr. Juan is a Alex Young guy. He is an Alex Young stan. He said he would without question pick that up. So I'm going to hold him to that. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. The more guys, the better.
Not always. Not if none of them are good.
All right. So I think the Reds need to add a right-handed bat. You'd prefer it to be an outfielder. I do think if there's a really good DH candidate, that also kind of makes sense. I love Jorge Soler. It'd be better to have a guy that could be a good defensive player for sure. But I think Soler might be the best hitter on the planet against left-handed pitching. I just think he would absolutely dominate it at Great America Ballpark. The fact that the Marlins didn't offer him a 1-year, $20 million qualifying offer makes me think you might be able to get this guy for something like $345, somewhere around that range, which maybe even less than that. So he's the guy at the top of the list. I know Teoscar Hernandez kind of does check a lot more of those boxes. I don't think has the upside offensively of Soler, but obviously can play a lot better defense. Of course, Luis Gurriel just in the World Series. Tommy Pham, he checks a lot of the boxes. I know a lot of Reds fans are like, no. But I think if you kind of dig a little bit deeper, Tommy Pham, he fits a lot of the needs. I'm not against Adam Duvall. But there's a whole lot of other guys down that list. Rhys Hoskins is an interesting guy. If you could get him on maybe a 1-year, establish yourself a Great American Ballpark deal. Anyone there stand out to you, Trace?
No, but I would say if you're going to be in the camp that you're okay, or you want a guy like Tommy Pham back, then I would think that you should also be in the camp that you want a guy that pitched in Japan last year back. That's how I feel. I mean, neither one of them could be prescribed as team guys or clubhouse guys or anything like that. But I'm just saying, if you're in the camp of one, I think you should be in the camp of both. That's all. This should be an equal opportunity situation. I don't want to hear about how Tommy Pham checks a bunch of boxes, but the guy's just a loser piece of shit. And then the other guy checks a bunch of boxes, but he's a loser piece of shit, so he's not allowed on the team. Like if Tommy Pham, Bauer, bring them both back. Bring them both back then. Let's just do it. If we're going to burn the building down, let's burn it all the way down, Nick. Let's make sure we get a full total. You know what I'm saying? Let's not take this thing to the body shop. Let's just scrap the thing and get a whole new car.
Now that would be a clubhouse.
Anyway.
I just put him on the list. I didn't even say for sure I'm all about it. I just think he does. If you're looking for the type of player that hits left-handed pitching well, can play pretty good defense in the outfield, is right-handed, Tommy Pham does check all three of those boxes.
Tommy Pham's not going to re-sign. He's not going to re-sign with the Reds anyways, because he's going to look up at the schedule and he's going to realize there's a bunch of 640 starts, and he's already had that life. He's already had that life. He's lived it, and he doesn't want any part of it again. So don't worry about Tommy Pham. He will not be coming to Cincinnati because of the fact of the matter is that 640 starts will ruin his. They'll ruin all of his, what did he call them? His defensive metrics is what he said.
I love that. You know what? If we get to the end of the season and the Reds haven't signed enough guys, we're going to full steam ahead because we're both against the 640 starts. We're going to blame the Reds for that. We're going to say, hey, it wasn't Nick Kral's job. He did everything he could. It's the 640 starts. Whoever came up with that, you ruined. You made free agents not want to come here. It's all on that.
It's a good point.
I love it.
We got our talking points. We got our alibis already set up, ready to go. That's what people think. That's what some people think. But that's here nor there. All right. Any other final discussion points here before we kind of get goofy for the last second of this show?
Nah, just excited to be back. Let's go. It's off-season time.
It is off-season time. We have some things that we need to get to. Nick is joining us full-time here at the start of 2024, so we're excited about that. Nick, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. Taking us up on our offer. That's number one. Number two is, really quickly, some of y'all need to save the super chats. I'll tell you why. We don't have the final details quite yet. Me and Nick are kind of locking those down. We purchased six season tickets all 81 games. We are going to create Chatterbox Reds. We're not going to do a Patreon because we're able to do basically the same thing as a Patreon on our website. And as a part of that, you will get 8 tickets. You can either choose to go to 4 games with 2 tickets, or you can go to 2 games with 4 tickets. And you will also be guaranteed the opportunity of drafting, I think it's at least 2 postseason games. So if the Reds were to make the postseason, you get the 2 tickets or the 2 games at face value for a pair of tickets. So if they go to the World Series and you draft the World Series and they make the World Series, then you get face value World Series. Obviously, if they don't make the World Series, you get your money back. We're not going to run some pyramid scheme here or anything like that. But we're also going to put some fun stuff behind the paywall. We're going to try to make things as valuable as we possibly can. And it will also, just to be clear, help support Nick and really us at Chatterbox. I don't want to make it sound like it's all Nick, but we're really trying to make this thing the best place to consume Reds content, and we're going to try to go after some content creators ourselves. And we have some few out there that we really, really like. We know some of them already have jobs, so maybe they're not able to help as much as they'd like. Maybe they'll help a little bit. Maybe they won't. Maybe talking to guys like Clay and Bryce. I don't know who I'm talking to. I'm just saying those are names that come to mind. And there's other people as well that I want to try to reach out to because I would like it to have a full-fledged perspective on this Reds ball club. I know me and Nick always don't see eye to eye on many things, but I think we'll find out over the years, I guess. But our core values, I think, are pretty closely aligned in what we believe and what we think the best things are for the Cincinnati franchise. And we'd like to have alternative viewpoints as well, as long as they're not idiots. So that knocks out a few people. But, we're just at a point now where I would like for there to be unbelievable content on Chatterbox Reds. The plan is to make it right around, I think, $20 a month. And again, that pretty much just pays for the tickets. And we'll go from there. But we only have, what did I tell you yesterday, Nick? I think we only have 60 spots to total. After you get probably a couple of us out of the way, maybe like 55 total spots that will be included in this Reds group. They are actually good tickets too. There's one set of 2 in the view level front row, and then there's another 4 that are, I should know this, they're called the view box, Nick. I don't know if you're familiar with the seating chart, but they're basically the seats that are right above the press box. That's what I got. Right above basically where Sadak and Welsh and the captain, Barry Larkin, no disrespect, where they sit, right above there is where those seats are. So I actually think that's the best place in the park to sit. I don't know if you believe that or if the chat believes that, but they're great seats.
Yeah, those are really good seats. If you're in the view box, like when you start getting a little higher up, it does. But those and it's really nice. There's only like 5 rows.
There's 5 rows.
It doesn't feel like you're as crowded as like when you're up in like the you're going up 50. You don't have to go up a lot of steps, so it's convenient to get in and out of. But one other thing we had talked about was for the people who sign up, doing some like Zoom style where you can come in and we can chat and hang out, and like you can be on video with us. Kind of, we'll do like I don't want to call it like a private or exclusive club and make it sound like something bigger than it is, but just a time we can hang out, talk some Reds, baseball with you. We can see your faces and stuff. Doing some stuff like that, maybe once a month or twice a month, or however much I guess people want to do it.
Yeah, no doubt. So we'll have some more news on that front. Those will be on sale, if you want to call it that. The Chatterbox Reds will hit Black Friday. So it'll be come out Black Friday, and we'll run it until all of the proverbial seats are taken, if you will, for the ticket plan or the ticket package. And then we do plan, obviously, to do some giveaways here on all of our streams and things of that nature, and keep the vibes high. Clay and a bunch of other folks here, I don't want to be disrespectful. I think Alex even asked, Reds Fest. Is there any kind of Reds Fest event? I think that you're going to Reds Fest. I'm sure I will sneak down there at least for a day. We don't have any kind of, I don't want to call it like a specific party planned. Any kind of, I don't want to say news on that front or anything you want to add about Reds Fest?
Working on something. I'll be there on Saturday. I will tell you that. And definitely happy to say hi to anyone down there, and working on hopefully something cool for Saturday. And I'll announce it when the time is appropriate.
Fair enough. Okay.
But I'll be there. I'll be there on Saturday. Hoping to come down Thursday. Probably won't go to Reds Fest because I do gotta see the family when I'm in town.
Right.
But I might come up to the Chatterbox Studios on Friday if they'll allow me. So if they let me in, I don't know. I don't know if my key card works yet or not.
Yeah. Well, everybody's saying it's party at my house. I can promise you that my wife probably wouldn't love that, but you know what? I've done things that she hasn't loved before. I'll tell you what, folks. Well, you guys are putting me to the test here at some point. I will genuinely do something really cool for a watch party. At some point. We're not doing dunks, okay? We're not doing dunks. I hate to be that guy. Dunks only come after wins.
They got to be special.
That's right. Yeah. What are you looking up, Nick? Something important?
Someone was asking when to expect trades. I was trying to find the 2020. For some reason, they don't put the off-season ones on the transaction log. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I know Castellanos signed really late. Like, it wasn't that far before spring training. They were pretty spread out. The Shin-Soo Choo trade happened right before Christmas. I remember that. I would expect there's a possibility. I doubt the Reds are going to set the market. That would be my guess. I don't see the Reds, signing one unless there's just someone that, man, they feel like they're ready to sign now and it just makes sense. I would be more surprised than not on that. So I would probably say after the winter meetings is probably when you maybe could expect the first signing. I don't know. I guess if put an over-under, I'll put Christmas is my over-under.
Yeah, I mean, I would take, just to be optimistic, I'll take the under on that. That's either going to be a big, significant free agent signing and or a trade.
Reds signed Mike Moustakas on December 5th. So that must have been right after the winter meetings or right before it.
Trying to sell some Reds Fest tickets, Nick. They probably aren't going to do that. I don't want people to take me serious when I say that. I'm joking, but you know what? People probably think I'm being serious. I don't think the Reds are. They could give two you know whats. I've already cussed on the show before, but they could give two you know whats about Reds Fest in regards to trying to get deals done or not get deals done. But I don't know if there's a deal that's already close to being done. Maybe they hurry it up because they know that it'll help.
Shogo was January 6th. I didn't even realize until I said it. Wade Miley was January 9th. It was right after.
What are you laughing about, Nick? What's so funny?
Nothing. Oh, man.
I'll tell you what, you better be careful. Who's Your Daddy's not even in here. He's already going to be on you about issue 2.
Thank goodness. Yeah, man, I was glued to the television hoping it would pass last night.
I bet you were, Nick. I bet you were out there loitering the parking lots of all of the polling stations.
Unfortunately, they're going to tax me now, Trey, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I do love those people that stand out in the parking lots, though, man. How dedicated do you have to be? I mean, what a dedication that is. It's like, brother, you're all in. I can respect that, but you're a little loose in the screw. You're loose in the screws.
There was this dude up here. I I think he was treasurer or something. I think it was the actual candidate. Not 100% sure. And it's like 35 degrees. This guy's in short sleeves, just in front back of his truck. I think he had his Bible out saying, "Come vote for me."
Like I said, don't hate the player, hate the game, man. You know what I'm saying? But
I think he won.
Good for him. Oh man, I tell you what. When it's legal, you never know. Who knows? Crazier things have happened on this show. All right. Thank you as always to our friends at Deep South Commodities, DSC, John, his team. They made a lot of things happen for us, man. They're making the world go around here for Chatterbox Reds. We hope you help us make the world go around and you join Chatterbox Reds when we launch it on Black Friday and beyond. And we would like to have the coolest ticket group there is east of the Mississippi. And who knows? I've always had a weird dream that I don't know why it was a dream per se, but when I was in high school, I used to watch Free Agency, and I thought to myself, Nick, I was like, just if we could, if it's almost like if the Reds fan base had a GoFundMe just for the fan base, and they had their own little collective bargaining fan base where it was almost like a fan base union. We could go out and work with the Reds and free agency and be like, no, we want this guy and we're going to pay for him. Now that's absurd, ridiculous thought, but you know what? Crazier things have happened. Just saying. Who knows? Maybe that's what Chatterbox Reds turns into in 30 years. There's going to be so many season ticket group members. We're going to take up a whole entire 3 sections, and we're going to bring the Reds so much revenue. They're going to have to listen to us. Maybe we'll make it to where that we have our own voting thing where they go to polls, Nick, and they have to vote on what free agent they want to get. And there can be people, they can stand out in the parking lots when they go to those said polls, and they can pick it for who they think that you should get. That's my full circle moment here on Chatterbox Reds off-season talk.
Mr. Juan wants a draft lottery show. You know, yeah,
we will do that. Yeah, we'll do that. We have to do that. All right. Actually, I'll do you one better. All these people want to come to my house. Blah 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 blah. We'll do a live draft party. At Chatterbox, and we'll also live stream it for those that aren't able to make it, obviously. And we will do. I don't know how much it costs, so this has got asterisks associated with it. I'm going to go buy a lottery ball machine, and everyone will get a lottery ball number, and it'll just like, you know how those things pin around like brrr, boom, and then one pops in. We'll do that all the way through. And then we'll draft that night, and we'll have one hell of a time. And by the end of it, Who's Your Daddy won't be able to walk straight.
I love it. A party for a 0.9% chance of getting the number 1 pick. That's big time.
Well, is that what you're doing? You're doing the math on that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't just Google it. I mean, I completely, calculated it on the fly for sure.
Oh, okay. We're talking about two different things. You're talking about the real. You're talking about the real draft. I'm talking about the draft for the tickets, but that's here nor there.
Yeah, I was confused why you were doing a full party for. Maybe that's what Mr. Juan was talking about. I thought he was talking about the draft lottery.
He could have been.
That's at the winter meetings. I think a live stream might be appropriate. I don't know about a whole party. That might be a little much.
No, to be clear, I'm talking about a party for the season ticket group members. I don't know.
It says two parties.
No 2 parties. Sorry, I'm not doing 2 parties. Mark, watch your mouth. All right.
Mr. Juan said I was talking about the draft lottery. Mr. Juan, that doesn't clarify.
Yeah, he's talking about the real draft, not the season ticket draft.
All right.
Yeah, he's talking.
We'll
about
do a
the
live
real
stream.
draft.
We'll do a live stream if we can. That'd be fun.
All right, folks. once again, as always, you guys are very loyal. We love you. It's not going to be that long before we commence again. But if you just can't wait, and you want to watch some more Chatterbox content, we got plenty coming your way. Chatterbox Bengals is on after every single game. The Chatter, and also the Chatterbox Bearcats, they are going live after every single UC men's basketball game. Chuck and Houdini do that. Then you have Chatterbox Clicker, as always, with Kyle Caskey. That is on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Mac and JT on Wednesdays, just football. And then, obviously, you got Off the Bench Monday through Friday from 10 A to 12 P with Tom Brenneman. And Box Lunch, which is our HBO show. You got to be a nut cutter, got to be a subscriber, got to be a member to be able to watch that. And that is on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at noon, just after Off the Bench. Tomorrow, we have a show, of course, as always, from 10 A to 12 P. And then we are going to be shooting the second round of Elliot's quest to finally win something athletically in his life. So we'll see if that goes. We'll see if that goes well. Who knows? Nick, final thoughts.
No, good to be back. Thanks everyone for watching. Counting down the days till January 1, full time with Chatterbox. Hopefully can bring some more content and really be able to go full steam ahead at this. But yeah, I'm just anxious for like the first move. I just want something to get going. That'll be fun. Not even I want some more chatter. It's exciting if you're a baseball fan.
It is. Nothing was better than back in the day when you barely had access to internet, and you got on MLB trade rumors, and there was just all this crazy talk. That was the best. But now you got Twitter, and it's almost like you have too much information, and you know sources and all this stuff. It was kind of nice just reading some forum talk, like just some crazy outlandish stuff. We'll see. Got some big moves this offseason. Got some big moves. We'll see where they ultimately end up falling as well. It's not just the Reds, but we got some big names out there. Ohtani's probably the biggest one, obviously, of maybe even my lifetime, per se, for a free agent. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And until next time, we love all of you. Keep following us on the old X.com. It's not the Bluebird anymore, the White X. We'll see how it goes. But until next time, hopefully you enjoy this, because you know what? It's like that. It's like that good night music. It's like the music that you fall asleep to. You know what it is. Take care, everybody. We love you. We'll see you soon. And as always, go Reds.